4 luxury women's shoe brands to never buy, and 5 that are actually worth it. The most recognized luxury shoe in women's fashion is identified by a color, not a construction method, not a material, not a last. A coat of red lacquer on the outsole. That red sole adds an estimated $300 to $500 to the price of every pair. The shoe underneath it is Blake stitched or cemented. Many lesser-known heritage shoemakers outperform it at lower prices. We ranked 9 women's luxury shoe brands. 4 are charging you for a signal. 5 are building shoes the way they were built a century ago. Starting with the red sole. Christian Louboutin. Louboutin still runs the company. The product is not the shoe. The product is the red sole. The lacquered red outsole adds an estimated $300 to $500 to the retail price of every pair, relative to comparable construction from brands whose entire business is footwear. Louboutin shoes retail for $795 to $1,595. The construction is predominantly Blake stitched or cemented. The leather is quality Italian calfskin. The finishing is excellent. But at $1,200, you are paying for a visual signal that is visible only from behind, only when you walk. The construction underneath that signal gives you one resole at best. At that price, you are in the same bracket as shoes from makers who have been building women's footwear for a century. The red sole is not a construction. It is a theater, and the ticket price is $1,200. Before we continue, there is one concept that separates every brand on this list. It is the single most important thing to understand about shoes, and it applies to women's footwear in a way almost no one in this industry wants to discuss openly. If you buy 8 pairs of shoes a year at $120, you are spending $960 annually on footwear that will be unwearable within 18 months. All 8 pairs, every year. If you buy 1 pair at $750 from a shoemaker who builds them to be repaired, you are spending $750 on a shoe that can be rebuilt 5 or 6 times over the next 20 years. Total cost per decade, less. The math is up to you. The industry is counting on you never doing it. The concept has 3 methods to determine how long your shoes last and whether a cobbler can ever repair them. The Goodyear welt is a separate strip of leather called the welt, which is stitched to both the upper and the insole. The outsole is then stitched to the welt, not directly through the insole. When the sole wears out, you remove and replace the outsole. The insole stays untouched. You can do this 5, 6, 7 times. A well-maintained Goodyear welted shoe lasts 20 to 30 years. You can identify it in any store. Turn the shoe over. If you see a visible row of stitching running around the full perimeter of the sole, that is a welt. That shoe can be repaired. The Blake stitch the sole is stitched directly through the insole in a single pass. Sleeker, lighter shoe. Can be resoled once or twice before the insole weakens. Functional lifespan, 3 to 7 years with regular wear. Cemented as the sole is glued to the upper. No structural stitching. When the glue fails, the shoe is finished. No cobbler can meaningfully repair it. This method appears on hundreds of shoes priced above $600. There is a second element that women's footwear almost never discloses: the shank, a thin structural insert, steel or fiberglass, embedded between the insole and outsole beneath the arch. It carries your body weight through the heel. A steel shank holds its shape for years. A fiberglass shank bends under repeated stress. No shank at all, which is more common than it should be at these prices, means the heel deforms, the arch collapses, and the shoe becomes unwearable long before the upper shows visible damage. You cannot see the shank from outside the shoe, but you can ask. If the sales associate cannot tell you what material the shank is made from, that is an answer. And third, the last, the foot-shaped form a shoe is built on. A pointed toe shoe built on an aggressively tapered last looks precise in a photograph. On a foot, it compresses the forefoot. Over hours, that load transfers into the metatarsals. A shoe built on a last designed for actual wear distributes weight across the ball of the foot. It holds the foot in alignment instead of distorting it. The construction can be Goodyear welted. The leather can be full grain. The shoe can still be unwearable after 4 hours if the last was designed for a runway, not a foot. Price does not tell you which one you are holding. That one detail tells you more about the shoe's true purpose than the brand name, the price, or the salesperson. Jimmy Choo. The same group that owns Michael Kors and Versace. Jimmy Choo was co-founded in 1996 by a Malaysian-born cobbler named Jimmy Choo and a fashion editor named Tamara Mellon. The craft is in the origin story. It is not in the current product. Capri Holdings acquired the brand in 2017 for $1.2 billion. The focus shifted to margin. Shoes retailing for $800 to $1,400 are predominantly cemented construction. The finishing is precise. The leather is calfskin. The aesthetic is correct. The shank on most styles is fiberglass. The cemented sole gives you 2 to 4 years before it separates and the shoe is done. $900 for 3 years of wearable life is $300 per year. That is not a luxury shoe. That is a lease. Stuart Weitzman. Stuart Weitzman founded the brand in 1986. Tapestry acquired it in 2015 for $574 million. Shoes retail for $300 to $700. Construction is cemented on most styles. The leathers are softer and less structured than the price implies. The Stuart Weitzman 5050 boot is one of the most recognized silhouettes in women's fashion. It is also cemented construction. Recognizable and Rizzoliable are not the same thing. At $450 for a cemented boot, you are paying for a name inside a group portfolio, not for a shoemaker's craft. The shoe that built this brand's reputation cannot be repaired when the sole wears through. That is what $450 buys. Giuseppe Zanotti. Designing a shoe means specifying the silhouette, the hardware, the heel height. Making a shoe means selecting the construction method, the leather grade, the shank material, the lasting technique. Zanotti shoes retail for $600 to $1,500. Construction is cemented on the majority of styles. The aesthetic is elaborate: crystals, chains, sculptural heels. The last shapes are aggressively narrow. At $900 for a cemented stiletto with a pointed last that cannot be resold and was not built around a foot's actual geometry, you are paying for a visual object. There is nothing wrong with that, if that is what you want. But it is not a luxury shoe. It is luxury price sculpture. And sculpture has no business being on your feet for 8 hours. Those are 4 fashion brands charging craft prices for construction that real shoemakers surpass at the same cost or less. Cemented and Blake-stitched shoes sold at Goodyear welt prices. But that advantage only holds if you never turn the shoe over. 5 brands turned it over first and built everything above it to match. Salvatore Ferragamo. Ferragamo built shoes by hand in Hollywood for Mary Pickford, Greta Garbo, Gloria Swanson. He held over 350 patents on shoe construction and design, including the wedge heel and an orthopedic last he developed after studying anatomy at the University of Southern California. The company he founded is still producing shoes in Florence. The Vera Pump, a low block-heeled shoe with a grosgrain bow, has been in continuous production since 1978. Vintage Vara, pumps from the 1980s and 1990s, resell today for $180 to $400 for pairs that originally cost $250. That is appreciation in a category where most shoes lose value the moment they leave the store. Current construction is Blake-stitched, but on a last designed for extended wear. The insole is structured leather. The shank is steel. At $550 to $750 for a current pair, the construction decisions were made by a shoemaker, not a fashion director. The vintage market has already priced in the difference. Manolo Blahnik. His niece, Christina Blahnik, now runs the company. The shoes are made in Italy and Spain by family-owned factories Blahnik has worked with for decades. Construction is Blake-stitched. The leather is full-grain Italian calfskin on core styles. The BB pump has been in continuous production for over 30 years. Vintage BB pumps from the 1990s resell for $300 to $700. The originals retailed for $400 to $600. That is appreciation. Not every pair, not every colorway. The core silhouettes in neutral leathers hold and grow in value. At $725 to $1,100 for a current pair, you are buying from a family business that controls its own manufacturing and has been building the same shoes on the same lasts long enough that those shoes are now collectible. That is not a fashion house that added footwear to a product line. That is a shoemaker who has been doing one thing for 50 years. Sarah Flint, the most construction transparent brand currently operating in women's luxury footwear, and the only brand on this list that was built from the start with construction as the primary argument, not aesthetics. Flint trained at the Fashion Institute of Technology and spent years working with Italian factories before launching. Goodyear welt construction on select styles. Blake stitched on the remainder. The toe boxes are wider than industry standard. The lasts are shaped around actual foot geometry, not a runway silhouette. The heel-to-toe drop is calibrated for extended wear. Prices run $285 to $595. At $395 for a Goodyear welted loafer, this is one of the only women's brands currently producing fully resolable footwear at this price point. The brand lists the construction method for each shoe on the product page. That transparency is not standard in women's luxury footwear. In this category, it is nearly non-existent. René Caovilla. Caovilla began making shoes for Venetian families. His son Edoardo now runs the company. Every pair is produced in the family's workshop in Fieso d'Artico in the Venetian Riviera, the historic center of Italian shoemaking. The shoes are hand-assembled. Crystal embellishments are applied stone by stone. Prices run $800 to $2,500. Evening sandals do not benefit from welt construction, but the materials are full-grain leather. The workmanship is documented, and production has never moved offshore. At $900, you are paying for one workshop, one family, and 78 years of doing the same thing the same way. That is a different transaction from paying $900 for a Capri Holdings logistics chain dressed in calfskin. Gravati. One of the last Italian makers still producing Goodyear welted women's shoes, Vigevano is the historic capital of Italian shoemaking, the same role Northampton plays in England. Gravati has been building shoes in the same town for over 110 years. Goodyear welt construction throughout the range. The lasts are developed in-house on wooden forms. The leathers are sourced from certified Italian tanneries. Prices run $450 to $850. At $550 for a Goodyear welted women's Oxford, you are buying a shoe that can be resoled 5 or 6 times, that will last 20 years with care, and that carries 110 years of Italian manufacturing tradition. No global advertising campaign, no celebrity ambassador, no Fashion Week presence. This brand is discovered by women who care about what holds the shoe together and recommended to other women who care about the same thing. The growth model is the product.